Mega Man X. If you were a kid in the 90s, you know this game. It came out in 1993, and as it turns out, a PC version came out in 1995. It was developed by Capcom, has some killer graphics, an amazing soundtrack, and challenging but rewarding gameplay. In it, you get almost crushed by this mercenary hired by Sigma, the main villain in the X series. X then goes on to fight all the Mavericks and eventually a version of Sigma. We're not here to go deep into the detail with the plot though, we're here to compare the PC version to the SNES version. To separate out which PC version though, I'm gonna say the DOS version throughout the rest of the video, because that actually matters, since they re-released all the X games recently on the PC. I guess we'll start with the graphics, like we always do. These graphics are largely the same, though technically the DOS version can display more lines on the screen. 480 lines of picture for the DOS version versus around 220 for the SNES version. I want to say that the color is better on the DOS version too, but that may just be how the emulator puts it on the screen for either version. So on a technical level, the PC version is better. They both use the same art though, so they look largely the same. This is a small victory compared to what's coming up next though, which will be a major switch. The sound. Yeah, let's go with the sound. Here's my main gripe with the DOS version on the sound. First off, let's do a music comparison. Now, a few tech details here. I set this DOSBox installation up as the average PC back in 1995. No fancy Roland M32s here, as that was an expensive add-on back then. The DOSBox defaults to the Sound Blaster chip, which is much better than the PC BIOS speaker by a long shot, and was only roughly $200 extra. Without getting too much more specific than I already got, the DOS version uses MIDI soundtracks, while the SNES version uses PCM samples. And the PCM samples sound infinitely better. The weird thing is, the sound effects in the DOS version are samples too, so were all the sound channels maxed out with just sound effects? Question to ask the programmers. Anyway, the music is part of what makes this game awesome. And the DOS version sounds like it was played on a Sega Genesis. Clearly inferior. Plus, look at all the room on this CD. Also, and this is mostly me forgetting just how long it's been since I messed with DOS games. Usually with DOS games you have to tell the game where the sound card in your computer actually is. More specifically, what the hardware address is. So you have to run that little utility before getting any sound in the game. I'm gonna give this one to the SNES for just better plug-and-play sound. The gameplay. Here's the other main section of gripes. The first gameplay element to complain about here is the controls themselves. Now, let me ask you a question. Does playing Mega Man X with a keyboard sound like a good time? You know, actually I wouldn't complain so much if I was allowed to map the movement keys to A and D. The main issue here is how I can't use my left hand to move. For years, decades even, on controllers, you use the left hand to move. But I can't on this. Movement is locked to the arrow keys on the right, and I seem to can't get used to it, as you all can see. Any complaints can be rectified though by buying the Capcom PC Fighter 6 controller pictured here. Originally made for Street Fighter, but it also works with this game. The other thing worth griping about here is the subtle change in this specific stage I played for the video. There appears to be one rather glowing omission. That's right. The giant mech suit here appears to be missing. Getting through this area without that thing was pretty tough. And I also can't explain what it is, but the DOS version just feels a little more off compared to the SNES version. But I'm going to chalk this one up to how I didn't bother to set up accurate processor timing on the DOSBox emulator, and not pin that issue on the game itself. That's actually a thing with DOS games, you can actually run them too fast. So what's the verdict? If you're a huge Mega Man fan, get this DOS version to add to your collection, but I would never suggest actually playing it. The best modern way to experience this is to pick up the Mega Man X Legacy Collection Bundle on your favorite 8th or 9th gen console. You know, PS4, Xbox One, or Series, Nintendo Switch, or get the very recent Mega Man X Legacy Bundle, Collection Bundle on Steam for PC stuff. Barring that, get an emulator and run the SNES ROM. So, just play it. This is an awesome game. Don't play the DOS version now. Play the SNES version. Port it. Emulate it.